The crystal city had stood for 3,000 years, its towers singing in harmony with the wind. The who lived within its walls were beings of living crystal, their bodies catching and reflecting light in patterns that spoke of peace and wisdom. They had never known war. Their greatest conflicts happened in debate halls, where scholars argued about art and philosophy while sharing cups of liquid starlight. Elder stood on the highest tower, watching the sky burn. Above him, massive ships moved like hungry insects, their dark hulls blocking out the stars. The Devourers had come to the system 3 days ago. Now they were eating everything. The first world miner was already gone. The Devourers had stripped away its atmosphere, consumed its oceans, and cracked open its core to feed on the molten rock inside. The second world lasted only 1 day longer. Now they were here, above Prime, the last home of the people. "Elder, the deep chambers are ready," said Apprentice Lyson, her crystal form flickering with fear patterns. "Most of our people are already inside the shelters." Looked down at his young student. Lyson was barely 200 years old, still learning to control the light patterns that danced across her surface. She had never seen anything like this because nothing like this had ever happened before. "Good," said. His voice made musical notes in the air. "Tell them to keep singing the harmony songs. If we are to die, we will die as we lived." Above them, one of the Devourer ships began to descend. It was the size of a mountain, its surface covered in writhing tentacles and glowing sacs full of digestive acid. Where it touched the ground, the crystal buildings began to dissolve. They had no weapons. They had tools for shaping crystal and devices for growing food, but nothing designed to hurt another living thing. Their defense systems were simple barriers meant to keep out dangerous weather, not hostile aliens who could eat planets. "Elder," Lyson whispered, "what do we do?" Watched more Devourer ships landing across his world. In the distance, he could see the great crystal forests beginning to melt as the aliens released their hungry chemicals. Soon, everything they had built would be gone. Soon, there would be no more at all. "We pray," he said finally. "We send our voices to the stars and hope someone hears us." They gathered in the central chamber deep beneath the city. 2 million, all that remained of their people, filled the vast crystal hall. Their bodies created a soft, beautiful light that painted rainbow patterns on the walls. Children pressed close to their parents while the elders took their places in the center. Raised his hands, and the great prayer began. They had always believed that the universe was full of good beings. Somewhere among the stars, they thought, there must be others like them. Peaceful people who cared about beauty and life. People who would help if they knew help was needed. "Hear us, children of distant stars," sang, his voice mixing with thousands of others. "We are the of Prime. We have lived in peace for all our days. We have hurt no one and taken nothing that was not freely given. Now dark things have come to our worlds. They devour all life and leave only emptiness behind." The song grew stronger as more voices joined. The crystal walls began to vibrate, turning the prayer into a signal that could travel between the stars. The language was musical, full of harmony and rhythm. Their words painted pictures in sound, telling anyone who listened about their peaceful way of life and their desperate need for help. "Send us guardians," they sang together. "Send us beings of light who fight against darkness. Send us mercy and justice. Send us those who protect the innocent and stand against evil. We do not know how to fight. We do not know how to kill. But surely there are others who do, others who use their strength to help the weak." As they sang, the city shook above them. The Devourers were breaking through the crystal walls, their acid turning beautiful towers into smoking ruins. The air began to smell of burning stone and dying plants. "We call to you, warriors of righteousness," they continued. "We call to you, angels of mercy. Come quickly, for we have little time. Save our children if you cannot save us. Remember our songs if our voices are silenced. Let something good come from this darkness." The prayer signal raced away from Prime at the speed of light, carrying the hopes and fears of a dying people. It was converted by their simple translation computers into basic mathematical concepts and emotional markers that any intelligent species should be able to understand. The message was clear: peaceful people in danger, asking for help from anyone who believed in protecting the innocent. Elder felt the ground shake as something massive crashed into the crystal dome above them. Cracks appeared in the ceiling, and drops of acid began to fall like deadly rain. Some of the younger cried out in fear, their light patterns flashing in panic. "Do not stop singing," called to them. "Let our voices be the last thing this world hears. Let our prayer reach the stars before we are silenced." But even as he sang, wondered if anyone would hear them in time. Space was vast and empty. Their signal would take years to reach even the closest stars, and who knew if anyone there would care about the fate of crystal people they had never met. The ceiling cracked wider. Acid poured down in streams, burning through crystal floors that had stood since before the learned to work metal. In the distance, they could hear the devourers feeding, making wet, hungry sounds as they consumed everything in their path. "Please," whispered between verses of the prayer song, "please let someone hear us. Please let someone come." He did not know that 3 weeks away, on the edge of human space, military sensors had already detected their signal. He did not know that Captain Sarah was reading the translation with growing anger, or that Admiral was ordering a full battle fleet to change course toward Prime. They had prayed for angels, beings of perfect light and gentle mercy. What they were going to get were humans with fusion weapons, and a very strong opinion about what should happen to species that ate other people's children. The universe, as usual, had a sense of irony. Captain Sarah was having a good day until the distress signal arrived. Her battle group was 3 weeks out from the mining colonies, conducting what the official reports called training exercises. In reality, they were testing their antimatter torpedoes on asteroids and having competitions to see which ship could achieve the most complete vaporization. The UES Wrath of Terra was humanity's heavy cruiser, built around a central spine that could fire projectiles at 30% of light speed. Her escort fleet included 2 other heavy cruisers, 12 frigates bristling with missile pods, and 2 marine assault ships carrying enough firepower to level continents. Was watching her weapons officer paint another asteroid with nuclear fire when Lieutenant Torres looked up from his communication station. "Captain, we're receiving an alien transmission. It's weird." "Weird how?" asked, settling back into her command chair. In her 15 years of service, she had heard reports of alien contact exactly 0 times. Humanity had found plenty of dead civilizations among the stars, but nothing living. "It's a broad-spectrum signal, very powerful. The translation software is working on it now, but—" Torres paused, listening to something on his headset. "Captain, you need to hear this." The bridge speakers crackled to life. The voice that emerged was artificially smooth, the product of human translation software turning alien concepts into familiar words. Requesting immediate military intervention against hostile threat. Population under attack by aggressive species exhibiting hive mind behavior and planetary consumption patterns. Civilian casualties mounting. Request urgent assistance from any military force capable of engaging biological spacecraft. Coordinates follow. Sat forward, play it again. As the message repeated, Tactical Officer Commander Burke was already pulling up star charts. "Those coordinates put the source about 18 light years from here, Captain. The system. Nothing in our databases about it." "Sir," Torres added, "there's more. The signal includes tactical data about the attacking force, uploading to your display now." Screen filled with information that made her blood run cold. The data described creatures the size of capital ships with biological weapon systems, species that consumed entire ecosystems, and reproduction patterns that suggested exponential growth if left unchecked. Jesus, Burke whispered. These things match the profile from the Titan Station incident. Remembered Titan Station. 15 years ago, a human research outpost on the edge of known space had gone silent. When rescue ships arrived, they found nothing but empty space and some strange organic debris. The official report blamed equipment failure, but had seen the classified files. Something had eaten the entire station, leaving only traces of unknown biological matter. Tours get me Admiral on subspace, Priority Alpha. Within minutes, the weathered face of Admiral Maria appeared on screen. The Admiral listened without interruption as played the alien transmission and shared the tactical data. "Thoughts, Captain?" asked when the report finished. "Ma'am, if these are the same creatures that hit Titan Station, we have a responsibility to act. These aliens are specifically requesting military assistance against a threat that appears to be committing genocide." Nodded slowly. "I agree. How quickly can your task force reach those coordinates?" Looked to her navigation officer, who was already running calculations. "At maximum burn, 14 days, ma'am, but we'll arrive with depleted fuel reserves." "Do it," said without hesitation. "Full authorization for military intervention. Rules of engagement are weapons free against any force matching the described profile. Priority is civilian protection." "Understood, Admiral. What about first contact protocols?" His expression was grim. "Captain, if someone sent us that transmission, they already know we exist. And if they're facing extinction, they probably don't care about proper diplomatic procedures. Save them first, shake hands later." 2 hours later, the human battle fleet changed course. Their fusion drives burned at maximum power, pushing the ships toward the system at speeds that would have been impossible for earlier generations of human technology. In the crew quarters, Marines checked their weapons and ran combat simulations. In engineering, technicians prepared the antimatter torpedoes and charged the particle beam arrays. Stood in her ready room, looking at the tactical data about their destination. According to the transmission, the attacking force consisted of organic ships that reproduced by consuming planetary biomass. The defending civilization had no effective military response and was facing complete extinction within days. Commander Burke entered with a cup of coffee and a troubled expression. "Captain, I've been thinking about this transmission." "What about it?" "The language patterns. Our translation software did its best, but alien concepts don't always convert cleanly. What if we misunderstood something important?" "Considered this, like what?" "Well, they keep referring to beings of light and righteousness. They talk about angels and mercy. It sounds religious, not military." "Burke, they sent us tactical data about hostile forces and specifically requested military intervention. Whatever their religious beliefs, they understand the situation they're in." Burke nodded but still looked concerned. "I hope so, Captain. I hope they know what they're asking for." As the days passed, the fleet pushed deeper into space. The crews trained constantly, running combat drills and studying the alien tactical data. The Marines practiced boarding operations and urban combat, preparing for the possibility that they might need to fight on planetary surfaces. Dr. Martinez, the fleet's, spent her time analyzing the transmission for clues about the aliens who sent it. The mathematical concepts were elegant but simple, suggesting a peaceful civilization with advanced technology but little military application. Their biological markers indicated silicon-based life forms, possibly crystalline in structure. "They sound beautiful," she told during one of their briefings. "Artistic, peaceful, intelligent, the kind of people we'd want as neighbors." "And someone is trying to wipe them out," replied. "That's all I need to know." On the 10th day of their journey, the fleet received a final transmission from the system. It was much weaker than the first, barely detectable above the background radiation of space. The message was short and desperate. "Please hurry, they are in our cities now. Our children are dying. Please, if anyone hears this, remember that we existed. Remember that we tried to be good." After that, there was only silence. Increase the fleet's speed beyond safe operational limits. The ship's hulls groaned under the stress of maximum acceleration, and the fusion reactors ran hot enough to make the engineers nervous. But no one complained. They had heard the fear in that final message, had understood that somewhere ahead of them, people were dying while asking for help. When they finally dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system, what they found made everyone understand why the aliens had gone silent. The inner system was a war zone. Massive organic shapes moved between the planets like living asteroids, their surfaces writhing with tentacles and glowing with bioluminescent weapons. Around the third planet, dozens of the creatures swarmed like feeding fish, their activities turning the atmosphere into a haze of smoke and steam. "Sensor report ordered." "Multiple biological contacts, Captain. Size range from frigate class to dreadnought class. They appear to be feeding on the planet's surface. No response to our arrival." Looked at her tactical display and made a decision that would echo across the galaxy for years to come. The aliens had asked for military intervention against a hostile force. The hostile force was right there, committing genocide while humanity watched. "All ships, this is Admiral. We have our targets. Weapons free. Show them what happens when someone threatens innocent people in our neighborhood." The human fleet powered up their weapons and accelerated toward battle. Behind them, Earth was 43 light-years away. Ahead of them was a war that would introduce the galaxy to humanity's particular brand of righteous fury. The universe was about to learn why evolution had given humans both compassion and nuclear weapons. The human fleet struck without warning. Captain had learned long ago that when facing an enemy committing genocide, there was no point in asking them politely to stop. The first salvo came from the wrath of Terra's main guns. 6 antimatter torpedoes crossed the space between the human ships and the Devourer fleet in less than 30 seconds. Where they hit, space itself seemed to tear open in brilliant flashes of annihilation. 3 of the largest bioships simply vanished, converted instantly to expanding clouds of superheated plasma. "Direct hits on targets Alpha through Charlie," reported Commander Burke. "Delta and Echo are breaking formation." "All ships continue engagement," ordered. "Priority targets are anything within orbital distance of the planet. Don't let any of them escape to threaten other worlds." What followed was not a battle, it was an extermination. The human fleet had been designed to fight other technological civilizations, enemies with shields and armor and point defense systems. The Devourers, for all their biological horror, were essentially space-based animals. They had evolved to prey on peaceful worlds, not to fight military forces that shot back. The frigate squadron swept through the outer system, their particle beams carving through Devourer scout organisms like hot knives through butter. The heavy cruisers concentrated on the largest bioships, using there to punch tungsten slugs through chitinous hulls at relativistic speeds. In the deep shelters beneath, they felt the vibrations as something massive struck their world's surface. Elder looked up at the crystal ceiling, where new cracks were appearing. "The attacks are getting stronger," whispered Apprentice Lyson. "How many of those creatures are there?" But Scholar, who had been monitoring their surface sensors, made a sound of confusion. "The bombardment has stopped. The bioships in orbit. They are gone." "Gone?" asked. "Destroyed. Something destroyed them. There are new ships in orbit now, ships of metal and ceramics. They are sending signals toward our location." Hope flickered in crystal form. "Our prayers were answered. The Guardians have come." Above them, Marine Sergeant Tommy Murphy was having a very different conversation with his squad. They had just dropped from orbit in assault pods, their mission to secure the area around the largest population center and eliminate any remaining Devourer organisms. "All right, Marines," Murphy said over the comm as they hit the ground. "Remember, we're here to help the locals. These crystal people asked for our help, so let's not disappoint them. Anything that looks like a giant bug with too many teeth, shoot it. Anything that looks like a walking disco ball, try not to shoot it." The Marines spread out through the ruins of their powered armor, making them look like walking tanks. Each soldier carried enough firepower to level a city block, and their sensors could track movement through solid walls. They found plenty of devourer organisms to shoot. Private Johnson discovered a cluster of the creatures feeding on a collapsed crystal spire. They looked like massive slugs with rows of grinding teeth, their bodies pulsing as they digested the crystalline structure. Johnson's response was direct and effective. He lobbed 3 plasma grenades into the center of the group. "Contact eliminated," he reported as the creatures dissolved in superheated gas. "Man, these things are ugly." Meanwhile, Apprentice Lyson had volunteered to make contact with their rescuers. Against Elder's protests, she climbed through the shelter's access tunnels toward the surface. She emerged from a hidden entrance to find herself in what remained of the Great Plaza. The destruction was worse than she had imagined. Beautiful crystal towers lay in melted ruins, their surfaces by acid burns. The Harmony Gardens were gone, replaced by pools of toxic sludge. But the Devourers were gone too, and standing in their place were creatures unlike anything in mythology. The first thing she noticed was their size. They were tall, nearly as tall as a but built wrong. Where they were elegant and crystalline, these beings were thick and solid, covered in some kind of artificial shell that gleamed dully in the light. Steam rose from their surfaces, and she could hear mechanical sounds coming from within their armor. One of them turned toward her hiding spot, and Lyson's crystal form flickered with terror patterns. The creature's face was visible through a transparent panel in its helmet, and what she saw there everything she knew about intelligent life. It had forward-facing eyes like a predator. Its skin was pale and soft-looking, marked with scars that spoke of violence survived. When it saw her, it bared its teeth in what could only be a threat display, revealing canines designed for tearing flesh. This was no guardian angel. This was a demon wearing armor. Sergeant Murphy, for his part, was trying to look as non-threatening as possible. He had removed his helmet and was approaching the crystal being with his hands visible and empty. He had read the first contact protocols on the way down, and he knew that initial meetings between species could be delicate. "Hello there," he said in what he hoped was a calm, reassuring voice. "My name is Tommy Murphy, United Earth Space Marines. We received your distress signal and came as fast as we could. Are you injured?" The translation device on his belt converted his words into mathematical concepts and emotional markers, then transmitted them to Lyson's receiver. But the language was subtle and complex, full of harmonic undertones that spoke of emotion and intent. The human technology did its best, but what Lyson heard was a series of harsh, guttural sounds punctuated by what sounded like satisfied hunting calls. She understood that this creature was expressing dominance over their territory and possibly claiming her as prey. Murphy saw the crystal being's light patterns shift to rapid, chaotic flashes and correctly interpreted this as fear. What he didn't understand was that Lyson wasn't just afraid. She was experiencing a complete breakdown of everything she thought she knew about the universe. "It's okay," Murphy said, taking another step forward. "The bad guys are gone. We killed them all. You're safe now." To Lyson, this sounded like a predator announcing that it had eliminated its competition and was now free to feed on whatever it chose. The demon was telling her that her people belonged to it now. She turned and fled back toward the shelter entrance, her light patterns screaming warnings in every direction. Behind her, she could hear the demon pursuing her with heavy, thundering steps. Murphy cursed and keyed his radio. "Command, first contact isn't going well. The local seems terrified of us, requesting guidance." Captain's voice came back immediately. "Sergeant, Remember that these people have been through a traumatic experience. They may be suffering from shock or post-traumatic stress. Try to establish communication slowly and calmly. Roger that, ma'am. But I think there might be a translation problem. This crystal lady looked at me like I was about to eat her. In the deep shelters, Lyson burst into the main chamber where the surviving were still gathered. Her light patterns were flashing emergency signals, and her harmonic voice carried notes of absolute terror. "They have come," she sang in desperate warning harmonies. "But they are not what we asked for. They are creatures of flesh and metal, beings of heat and violence. They have fangs like beasts and eyes like hunters. They wear the shells of their victims as armor." Elder rose from his position in the center of the chamber. "Child, what are you saying?" "The signals from above are not from guardian angels," Lyson continued. "They are from demons, flesh demons that feed on violence and wear the bones of their enemies. They told me they killed all the other predators so that we would belong to them alone." Around the chamber, 2 million began to understand that their prayers had been answered by the wrong gods. They had asked for beings of light and mercy to protect them from monsters. Instead, the universe had sent them bigger monsters who had eaten the first monsters and were now looking for dessert. Above them, Sergeant Murphy was trying to figure out why his peaceful first contact had turned into a horror movie. Behind him, the rest of his squad was efficiently eliminating the last devourer organisms, while his radio crackled with reports of successful engagements across the planet. "Area secured," came Private Johnson's voice. "All hostiles neutralized. Man, you should see what these bug things were doing to the crystal buildings. Good thing we showed up when we did." Murphy nodded and looked back toward the shelter entrance where the crystal being had disappeared. Somewhere down there, the people they had come to save were hiding from their rescuers. "Yeah," he said quietly, "good thing. It was going to be a long day." Dr. Martinez had dealt with difficult first contact situations before, but nothing had prepared her for this. She stood in the middle of what used to be main plaza, surrounded by enough medical supplies to treat a small army, while the people she was trying to help acted like she was carrying plague. "It doesn't make sense," she said to Sergeant Murphy. "We answered their distress call. We saved them from extinction. Why are they so afraid of us?" Murphy shifted his weight, his power armor servos whining softly. "Doc, I've been thinking about that. You ever see a house cat react to someone trying to help it?" "You're comparing them to cats." "I'm saying sometimes when something's been hurt bad enough, it can't tell the difference between help and harm anymore." 3 days had passed since the fleet's arrival. The space battle was long over. The human ships had eliminated every devourer organism in the system with ruthless efficiency. Marine squads were conducting sweep operations across the planet, hunting down the few remaining bioforms that had reached the surface. By any military measure, the operation was a complete success. But they remained hidden in their shelters, refusing all contact with their rescuers. Every attempt at communication had been met with the same response: rapid retreat, and what the translation computers rendered as prayers for protection from the flesh demons. Dr. Martinez activated her external speakers and tried again. "People of this is Dr. Martinez of the United Earth Medical Corps. We have supplies for your wounded. Food, medicine, equipment to help rebuild your city. Please, let us help you." From deep below, she could hear the faint sounds of crystal voices singing in harmony. The translation picked up fragments, prayers asking their gods to drive away the demons, to protect their children from the creatures that wore death as armor. "They think we're demons," Martinez said quietly. "Well," Murphy replied, "I guess we do look pretty scary from their perspective. Have you seen Johnson's armor? He's got devourer kill marks painted all over it." As if summoned by the mention of his name, Private Johnson appeared around the corner of a ruined crystal spire. His power armor was indeed decorated with small marks representing confirmed kills, and he carried his plasma rifle like it was an extension of his body. "Hey Doc, Sarge," Johnson said cheerfully. "Found another nest about 2 clicks north. Big one, maybe 50 of the slug things. Want me to clear it out?" "Do it," Murphy said. "But try to keep the noise down. We're still working on the locals." Johnson grinned and hefted his weapon. "No problem. I'll use the quiet charges." As he walked away, Martinez shook her head. "The quiet charges? Jesus, Tommy, do you hear how that sounds?" But Murphy was watching something else. A small crystal being had emerged from a crack in the plaza floor, moving slowly and carefully toward a piece of debris. Even from a distance, he could see that it was injured, one arm hanging at an odd angle. "Doc," he said softly, "injured civilian at 2 o'clock. Looks like a kid." Martinez turned and saw the small, probably a child based on its size, and the incomplete light patterns dancing across its surface. The little being was trying to reach something trapped under a fallen crystal beam, but its injured arm made the task impossible. "I'm going to help," Martinez said. "Careful, Doc. Remember what happened last time." Martinez approached slowly, her hands visible and her medical scanner already analyzing the child's condition. The little saw her coming and froze, its light pattern cycling through what could only be terror. But it didn't run. Something was keeping it there. As Martinez got closer, she saw what the child was trying to reach. Another, even smaller, was trapped under the crystal beam. Its light patterns were dim and flickering weakly. "Oh, honey," Martinez whispered, "you're trying to save your little brother, aren't you?" She activated her external speakers and spoke in the gentlest voice she could manage. "I'm a doctor. I want to help your family." The translation rendered this as a series of soft tones, but the child's response was immediate and heartbreaking. It began to sing in high, crystalline notes that spoke of desperation and love, and the terrible choice between running from monsters and staying to protect someone even more helpless. Martinez knelt down slowly, making herself as small and non-threatening as possible. She reached into her medical kit and pulled out a portable lifting device, a small anti-unit designed for moving heavy equipment. With careful movements, she activated it and slid it under the crystal beam. The beam rose smoothly, and the trapped child was free. But as Martinez reached toward the injured little one with her medical scanner, something unexpected happened. The device's healing, designed to work with human biology, reacted strangely to the child's crystalline structure. The child began to glow. Its crystal form caught the energy and amplified it, creating patterns of light that spiraled across its surface in complex mathematical sequences. To human eyes, it looked like the most beautiful thing imaginable, a small being made of living light, its injuries healing as the glow spread through its structure. To eyes, it looked like possession by evil spirits. The light patterns matched ancient warning signs in their cultural memory, symbols that spoke of corruption and unnatural influence. The older child screamed and ran, abandoning its sibling to the demon doctor. "Wait," Martinez called out, but it was too late. The child had disappeared back into the underground passages, probably to tell the adults that the flesh demons were using dark magic on their young. She looked down at the little one she had healed. It was sitting up now, its arm functioning perfectly, its light patterns bright and healthy. When it saw her, it made soft, musical sounds that needed no translation. It was trying to say thank you. "At least someone appreciates good medical care," Martinez said. Meanwhile, across the city, other Marines were having their own encounters with culture. Corporal had discovered a group of adults trapped in a collapsed shelter. His solution was characteristically direct. He used shaped charges to blast open an entrance, then rappelled down into the darkness to carry the injured to safety. To the Marines, this was standard rescue protocol. To the, It looked like demons using controlled explosions to break into their holy places so they could carry off victims for unknown purposes. The fact that was whistling while he worked, a nervous habit he'd picked up during his first combat deployment, only made it worse. Private, meanwhile, had volunteered for the most dangerous assignment of all, manually clearing out a devourer nest that had grown too close to a major shelter entrance. The bioforms had created a maze of acidic tunnels that could collapse if hit with heavy weapons. "Someone's got to go down there and clean them out the hard way," said when asked why she had volunteered. "Might as well be me. I'm having a bad week anyway." She descended into the tunnels with nothing but a combat knife, a sidearm, and enough explosives to level a city block. Her mission was to plant charges at key structural points, then escape before the detonation brought down the entire nest. The who witnessed her descent saw a flesh demon voluntarily entering the realm of death, singing as it went. Because was indeed humming, an old Earth song about going home to see family. To human ears, it was nostalgic and comforting. To alien ears that had never heard human music, it sounded like hunting songs from the depths of hell. When emerged 3 hours later, covered in acidic slime and carrying the severed heads of 6 devourer organisms as proof of her success, the watching finally understood what manner of beings had come to their world. These were creatures that walked into death's domain and came out wearing their enemies as trophies. Elder received all these reports in the deep chamber where his people sheltered. With each account, his understanding of their situation became clearer and more terrible. "They are not here to rescue us," he said finally. "They are here to claim us. They destroyed the first predators not out of mercy but to eliminate competition. Now they toy with us, demonstrating their power, marking our children with their dark magics, showing us that there is no escape from their domain." Scholar, who had been studying the transmissions from the flesh demon's ships, looked up from her analysis. "Elder, I believe you are correct. Their communications speak constantly of securing the area and eliminating all hostiles. They have designated our world as their territory." "And us?" asked Apprentice Lyson. "We are no longer hostiles," said grimly. "We are prizes." Above them, Dr. Martinez was still trying to understand why her successful medical intervention had caused such panic. She sat in the plaza with the healed child, who seemed fascinated by her equipment but kept looking nervously toward the shelter entrances. "I don't get it," she said to Murphy over the comm. "I healed that kid perfectly. They worked better than I've ever seen them work, but the older child acted like I had just cursed its family." "Maybe," Murphy said slowly, "they don't understand our technology. Maybe what looks like healing to us looks like something else to them." Martinez looked down at the child, who was now playing with a small crystal toy while glowing faintly with residual energy. What could be scary about healing? She didn't know that in culture, only the dead glowed with that particular pattern of light. She had accidentally made a living child display the luminescence of spirits, marking it as something between life and death. From the perspective, she had not healed the child. She had turned it into a small, walking ghost. The universe, it seemed, had an infinite capacity for irony. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source: human children. Dr. Martinez had been working on the translation problem for 2 weeks, trying to find a way to communicate with that wouldn't terrify them. She had requested help from Earth, and the linguistics team had sent her something unusual: video files of human families, including children at play. "The idea," the team leader had explained, "is to show them that we're not just soldiers. We're people with families, with young ones we protect. Maybe if they see our children, they'll understand that we're not monsters." Martinez was reviewing the files when Scholar finally emerged from the deep shelters. They had been chosen specifically for this mission because she was old enough to remember the time before the Devourers, when her people had studied the stars and wondered about other forms of life. Approached the human camp slowly, her crystal form flickering with complex light patterns that the translation computers rendered as peaceful intentions and request for knowledge. She had convinced Elder to let her make contact, arguing that they needed to understand their captors if they were going to survive. "I am Scholar," she said, her musical voice creating harmonies in the air. "I seek to understand the nature of the flesh demons who have claimed our world." Martinez looked up from her tablet, surprised. This was the first time any adult had approached them voluntarily. "I'm Dr. Martinez. We're not demons and we haven't claimed anything. We came because you asked for help." "You destroyed our enemies," said carefully. "You marked our children with your dark magic. You sent your warriors into the realm of death itself. If you are not demons, what manner of beings are you?" Martinez thought about this for a moment, then held out her tablet. On the screen was a video of her own daughter playing in a park back on Earth. The little girl was laughing as she chased a butterfly, her face bright with joy and innocence. "We're parents," Martinez said simply. "We're people who heard children crying for help and couldn't ignore it." Stared at the screen. The flesh demon child looked nothing like but there was something in its movements, its obvious happiness, that spoke to universal concepts of youth and joy. "This small creature is your offspring." "My daughter, Anna, she's 6 years old. When I heard your transmission, when I heard the fear in your voices, all I could think about was someone threatening her, someone trying to hurt children anywhere in the universe." "But your warriors," said, confusion coloring her light patterns. "They take pleasure in violence. They sing as they descend into death's realm. They mark themselves with the symbols of their kills." Martinez pulled up another video, this one showing Private Johnson at his sister's wedding. In the recording, he was holding a baby, his face soft with tenderness as he made silly faces to make the infant laugh. "That's the same soldier you saw fighting," Martinez explained. "He volunteers for dangerous missions because he doesn't want anyone else to get hurt. He sings when he's scared because it helps him stay brave. And those marks on his armor, each one represents a monster that will never threaten innocent people again." Studied the video, her mind working to reconcile this image with what she had witnessed. "Your people. You choose to walk into darkness to protect light." "Yes, it's what we do. It's what we've always done." Over the following days, the real work of understanding began, brought other to the surface, including some of the injured. Dr. Martinez worked with them to solve the translation problems, slowly building bridges between two completely different ways of understanding the universe. They learned that human medical technology wasn't dark magic. It was science applied with compassion. That had made the child glow were healing machines, designed by people who couldn't bear to watch others suffer. The humans learned that culture had no concept of protective violence. For 3,000 years, they had lived in a universe where strength was used only for creation, never destruction. The idea that someone would willingly face danger to protect others was completely alien to their experience. "We have been foolish," Elder admitted when he finally emerged to meet Captain. "We asked for guardians of light, beings without shadow or darkness, but light cannot exist without something to drive away the darkness." Stood before the gathering of leaders, her uniform crisp and her bearing military but her voice gentle. "You weren't foolish. You were innocent. You've never had to face true evil before, so you didn't know what it takes to fight it." "And what does it take?" asked. "Thought about this carefully. It takes people who are willing to carry darkness so others don't have to. It takes warriors who can look into hell and walk through it to reach the innocent on the other side. We don't enjoy violence, but we're good at it when it's needed." Apprentice Lyson, who had been watching from the back of the group, stepped forward. "But why? Why would you choose to become what you are for the sake of strangers?" Sergeant Murphy answered for all of them. "Because someone has to. Because the universe has monsters in it, and they're not going to stop being monsters just because good people ask them nicely. So some of us become monster hunters." Even though it changes you, Lyson pressed. Even though it makes you frightening. Murphy's face softened slightly. Kid, I've got a nephew about your age back home. If something was threatening him, I'd walk through hell barefoot and punch the devil in the face. That's not about being tough or scary. That's just love with teeth. The understanding deepened over the weeks that followed. They learned to see past humanity's frightening exterior to the protective instincts underneath. They began to understand that the same qualities that made humans terrifying in battle, their persistence, their creativity, their absolute refusal to accept defeat, also made them invaluable as allies. The humans, meanwhile, gained an appreciation for what they had saved. They were everything humanity wasn't: peaceful, artistic, harmonious. They created beauty for its own sake and had built a civilization based on cooperation rather than competition. They were what humanity might have become if Earth had been a kinder world. The memorial service took place 1 month after the last devourer had been eliminated from the system. It honored both the who had died in the invasion and the 17 Marines who had fallen during the cleanup operations. Elder stood before the assembled crowds, his crystal form reflecting the light from both human technology and artwork. His voice carried across the plaza as he spoke words that would be remembered for generations. We prayed to heaven for angels, he said, his tones creating harmonics that spoke of wisdom and acceptance. In our innocence, we imagined beings of pure light, creatures of perfect mercy who would drive away darkness with gentle words and healing songs. He paused, looking directly at Captain and her officers. Instead, the Earth answered with warriors. They came to us by their own battles, carrying weapons that could break worlds, singing songs of war and death. They were everything we had never been and never wanted to become. Another pause, and when he continued, his voice carried new harmonies, notes of gratitude and understanding. But we understand now what we could not see then. Angels were never meant to be gentle beings who sing away the darkness. True angels are those who are willing to fight the darkness, to carry it within themselves if necessary, so that others may live in the light. He gestured toward a crystal sculpture that had been erected in the center of the plaza. It showed human Marines in combat armor, but the crystal had been grown in such a way that light flowed through them, making them appear luminous despite their military bearing. You are our angels, said simply, not because you brought peace, but because you brought justice. Not because you were gentle, but because you were fierce in defense of the innocent. We asked for guardians of light, and heaven sent us guardians who were willing to walk through darkness. Captain stepped forward, accepting a small crystal token from. It was inscribed with words in both languages. To the angels of Terra, may the galaxy tremble at your mercy. We're not angels, said quietly. We're just people who couldn't stand by and watch while children were dying. Yes, replied, his light patterns shimmering with something that might have been a smile. That is exactly what angels are. 6 months later, when the trade hegemony of AS attempted to impose economic sanctions on the worlds, they found themselves facing an unexpected diplomatic obstacle. The gentle crystal people they had thought to intimidate smiled politely and mentioned their human associates. The hegemony's negotiators suddenly found themselves sitting across from Captain, who explained in very reasonable tones that interfering with Earth's allies was generally considered a poor career choice. The sanctions were withdrawn within hours. Word spread quickly through the galaxy. The crystal singers had made friends with the flesh demons. The peaceful were under the protection of creatures who considered orbital bombardment an acceptable response to trade disputes. It was, the galaxy concluded, a deeply disturbing development. But then again, the universe had always been full of ironies. The most beautiful among them was this. Sometimes the best angels are the ones who know how to be demons when the situation calls for it. And sometimes, the most important prayers are the ones answered by forces you never expected to need. In the crystal cities of Prime, children now grew up singing new songs, harmonies that spoke of distant Earth, where angels wore armor and carried weapons, where beings of fierce compassion watched over the darkness to keep the light safe. And in the void between stars, other threats to innocent life began to whisper nervously about the species that answered prayers with gunfire and considered righteousness a form of warfare. The universe was learning to fear mercy human style. It was probably about time.